Have you ever wondered if the greatest loss might, in fact, be the greatest salvation? If, in the shadow of adversity, an invisible hand protects us in ways we could never anticipate? The following story is a journey to find answers to these profound questions. In a prosperous kingdom nestled amidst majestic mountains, there lived a king named Theron. He was renowned not only for his skill in governing and bringing peace to his people, but also for his profound wisdom and benevolent heart. On his finger, the king always wore a deep blue jade ring, exquisitely crafted. Yet, the ring's most precious quality lay not in its material value, but in the small inscription etched inside, "This too shall pass." For King Theron, it was more than just an ornament. It was a silent mentor. During lavish banquets, when cheers echoed through the palace, he would subtly turn the ring, reminding himself that glory was fleeting and humility must be preserved. And in years of drought and famine, when anxiety gripped the entire kingdom, he would gaze at the inscription to find hope, to believe that hardship too would recede into the past. This philosophy of impermanence helped the king navigate the kingdom's ship through countless storms, always maintaining his composure and clear judgment. One afternoon, while strolling in the royal gardens, King Theron suddenly realized that his familiar ring was no longer on his finger. A fleeting sense of emptiness passed through him. Immediately, guards and servants were mobilized to search everywhere, from the gravel paths to every flower bed and bush. News quickly reached the high ministers of the court. Lord Cedric, who had served the king since the early days, rushed in with a face full of worry. He bowed and reported, "Your Majesty, this is an ill omen. The ring is a precious talisman for you and the entire kingdom. Losing it, I fear, portends impending disaster." Other officials whispered amongst themselves, an atmosphere of unease enveloping the entire palace. Yet, contrary to everyone's panic, King Theron smiled serenely. He placed a hand on his loyal minister's shoulder and said, "Do not be overly concerned, my friend. An external object, once lost, can be found again, but peace of mind, once lost, is difficult to reclaim. The future is inherently an enigma. We should not torment ourselves over something not yet clear. Everything that happens has its reason." Despite the king's words, anxiety still lingered in the eyes of the officials. And then, it seemed fate wished to test the king's faith to its very limits. A few weeks later, when most had almost forgotten about the ring, a terrible calamity struck. Under the cover of night, a band of robbers from the Black Peak Mountains, notorious for their brutality and recklessness, launched a surprise attack on the capital city. Alarm bells shrieked, tearing through the peace. Shouts, the clash of swords, and the smell of smoke spread everywhere. King Theron, though advanced in years, immediately donned his armor, intending to personally lead the charge to boost the soldiers' morale. In his haste to reach the armory, due to the darkness and the slippery flagstones from a sudden rain shower, he tripped and fell. Instinctively, the king extended his right hand to break his fall. A dry crack echoed, followed by a searing pain that pierced him to the bone. His right arm, the arm he used to wield his sword and protect his realm, was now severely injured, utterly powerless. The physical pain was nothing compared to the anguish in his heart. The king felt more helpless than ever. First, the loss of his protective ring, and now his sword-wielding arm. It seemed all the ill omens had come true. In the chaos, King Theron was separated from his personal guard. He found himself lost in a dark alley and surrounded by a group of robbers. The leader, with a fierce face and a long scar across his eye, scrutinized the king from head to toe. He saw the plain clothes the king wore beneath his hastily removed armor, which looked unremarkable. Roughly, he grabbed the king's hands, searching for valuable jewelry, especially the royal ring he had heard rumors about. But he found only an empty hand. His greedy eyes gleamed with disappointment. Then he noticed the king's right arm, crudely bandaged, swollen and immobile. He sneered contemptuously. "Just a useless old man with a broken arm. Nothing of value here. Let's go, find another target." With that, he and his accomplices pushed the king aside and left, continuing their rampage. King Theron stood silently in the darkness, his heart still pounding. He had just narrowly escaped the Reaper's scythe. As dawn broke, the royal army finally repelled the robbers. The capital lay ravaged but was safe. King Theron, with his injured arm, returned to the palace amidst the anxious welcome of his court. Lord Cedric looked at the king, tears welling in his eyes. "Your Majesty, you have returned safely. What a great blessing, but the loss of the ring and your injured arm. Truly a great misfortune." At this moment, King Theron looked down at his empty hand, then at his aching arm, and a smile of profound understanding bloomed on his lips. He summoned his officials and recounted the story of being surrounded by the band of robbers. When he reached the part where they left because they found no ring and saw his injury, the entire court fell into stunned silence. The king spoke, slowly but filled with deep contemplation. "My esteemed ministers, only now do I truly understand everything. If, on that day, the ring had still been on my hand, the robbers would have recognized me as the king, and they surely would not have let me live. If, on that day, my arm had not been injured, I would have wielded my sword and fought like a warrior, and perhaps I would have been slain by them to eliminate a future threat. Do you see, my friends? The loss of the precious ring, which we considered an ill omen, turned out to be an invisible protection. My broken arm, the pain I thought was a punishment, turned out to be a preparation for my survival. What seemed like a loss was protection. What seemed painful was preparation. Everything in this life, whether good or bad, serves a purpose." The king's words echoed throughout the court, not only dispelling the gloomy atmosphere but also sowing a seed of faith in every heart. They realized that the wisdom of life is sometimes cleverly concealed by veils that humans hastily label as misfortune. We often lament what we have lost, failing to recognize that the very loss sometimes opens a path to survival. We often resent our pains, unaware that they are forging us to become stronger. So, the next time you face a loss, a failure, or a seemingly insurmountable pain, take a deep breath and tell yourself, "This too shall pass," and believe that, even in the darkest nights, the universe is quietly arranging everything for your highest good. Sometimes, to find the light, we must first walk through the darkness.